Greetings all, Shane Bruce with the Resto-Mod Daisy, back with part 2 of our 8-gun review. It wasn't going to be a two-parter originally, but I pressed a button, something happened, I don't know, so here we are. Well, let's continue on with the review. These are the remaining 5 guns of the 8 guns we've received in for some rework. And we're going to review each one of these and try to figure out which one of these is going home and which one's staying put. What we've got here now is a Daisy model Red Ryder 1938, which is a Rogers, Arkansas gun. And it is the iteration of this weapon that was popular in the early 60s. As you can see, it's a 1938, not a B. And you can also tell that it's a model 1938 because it has a Daisy metal trigger as well as a metal trigger and a cast aluminum lever. These guns have adjustable sights. It's de rigueur, but they're a simple notch. They're not the step notch that the 11140s had. These particular guns are painted, and they're all in pretty good nick. No major dents, no major dings. So one of these guns, or maybe 2 of these guns, are going to end up heading back to the owner after conversion. Let's take a look at the flip side on it. Got a little bubbling right here at the front of the muzzle. That's concerning, but not terribly concerning. That is treatable. The wood stocks on the gun were okay. They're a poplar of some description. Here you see a classic problem with old Daisies. You'll notice that the receiver here is dented in slightly because somebody got a little too enthusiastic about the trigger bolt. And on this side, you'll see that the factory fitting is gone and has been replaced by probably a quarter 20 bolt that fits the stock. It does have the remnants of the the paper labels that came on these guns. And as you can see, they provide you with a mailing address for Daisy should you need to get a hold of an operator's manual. The neat thing about the model 1938 is the number 111 Model 40s used a smaller seal set. The small seal set is currently sold for the Model 25. The 1938s went to the larger seal set, the .89 seal set that it survives to this day in the current production Red Ryder. Now what that means is you get a little bit more swept volume in the compression chamber, which means these guns theoretically should be able to run a bit faster. Another technical innovation that's present on the 1938 is the oil here hole. Now, Daisy discovered when they transitioned from the leather seals to the synthetic seals that they needed to be oiled a lot more often than the leather seals did. And as a result of that, they decided to install a hole in the top of the receiver so that the user could oil the guts, the innards there, to keep that plastic / rubber / neoprene / whatever the hell it is from deteriorating too fast. You won't find that on a 11140. You'll also not find on this gun a viewport because that change occurred when they went to the plastic abutments in 78. It does have a bottle cap. Good solid gun, not a lot of dents. It's going to make a fine piece. I just have to figure out if this is one of the ones. Now back to the other 2, which are pretty much identical. Here we have a complete paper label. Literature. I wonder what sort of literature they're talking about. Anyway, poplar stock, and as you can see, it's suffered the ravages of time. This one does have the Lariat wrap lever though, which I like. I call it a Lariat wrap because to me it looks like somebody wants it to look like it's got leather wrapped around the lever, which is a pretty common mod you'll see on a lot of Daisies because it's a simple, easy thing to do, and it does make an improvement. It does improve the way the gun feels. Like our previous model 1938, this one does have pretty good steel. No major dents, dings. Same problem we discussed earlier. It does have its Latigo loop, no leather. The buttstock's in fair shape. It's a little rough on the edge, but I've seen worse. And once again, the steel on this side of the gun looks good, so it's an excellent candidate for a Resto-Mod. It's complete. It's got a neat lever system on it, and with a Cobalt 327 Super Spring, 764 air tube, probably run pretty hot. But the customer doesn't want that, so it's going to get a Red Ryder spring and a standard air tube. We'll see what kind of numbers that generates on the chronograph when we get around to doing it. And here's our third candidate. He's probably going to stay put because it is missing the Latigo loop holder. That has to be fabricated. But the good news is we can probably get that done with the current production Latigo loop, even though it's not very stout. You'll notice that the screws on this gun are Phillips tips, so that puts it later in the production cycle. It's got the oil here hole, and this one has got some issues with some serious rust bubbles. So yeah, it's going to get stripped. Got a registration number on it, Rogers, Arkansas gun. Nice daisy overall, probably pretty solid. More rust bubbling and rust evident on this side. So this one looks like it's going to stick with me, and I'll do something zippy with it. Boy, that stock looks rough, man. And no Latigo loop, but it does have the daisy with the bullseye in the D. I think that's another neat feature. I like that logo because, you know, bullseye, got to hit the target. If you're not hitting the target, you're fooling yourself. And as you can see, the metal is in fair shape. And it has the adjustable rear sight as well, but just a simple notch. So that's the third 1938. And we'll move on to the last two guns here, which are underappreciated, I believe. These are Daisy Model 111s. And the 111 is one of their, their standard campaign gun. I mean, it's a small frame Daisy. These come with, typically were sold with very short 12-inch butt stocks. So this is a youth model for all intents and purposes. But it does have the a plastic forearm with a plastic barrel band. Let's flip it over and look at the roll stand, because this is also a Rogers gun. But as you can see, it says model number 111, Rogers, Arkansas. And this one's equipped with a registration number, which would magically tell us the date of manufacture if I ever got really, really conversant with registration numbers without having to do research. Now, the 111, if you'll notice, has the step rear buckhorn, which is pretty cool and is elevation adjustable. It is also a bottle cap gun. So these are guns that are pre-78 because they still have a bottle cap. Now it shares the guts internally with the 1938B, so it's got the larger piston assembly, a little bit more swept volume. And one of these guns, a 111 that I converted last year, holds the record for me in terms of a Daisy that I did the spring swap, air tube swap, new seal swap, and a Model 25 shot tube swap on, that got the gun over 400 feet a second. It actually had a couple of recorded speeds of 404 and 405, and the 10-shot string average was 496. So of the between the 1938s and these 111s seem to run a little faster. Not quite sure why. But they're underappreciated, and they have all the attributes that, if you're looking for a high-power Daisy, that you want to be, focused on. Big air tube, or not big air tube, big compression chamber, larger diameter, and then you have the bottle cap feature, the adjustable rear sight feature, and of course the metal trigger, which I think is critical, especially in a high-pressure spring environment. And the other 111 is essentially the same gun. A little rougher shape, not quite as nice as the previous one, but you can still see some of the scroll work on the receiver from the spray paint that they used. It's got the Daisy with the bullseye, which is nice. This rear sight has a bit of a kink, and that's not unusual at all with these guns, because that elevation screw is often confusing to folks, and they'll end up fiddling and bending stuff around, and you get something that looks like that when it should be actually straight, unless the rear sight's being jacked up on purpose. So I don't know if this occurs because people are just sloppy with the guns. That one's got some wear and tear on it, or not. There's the oil here hole. This has a plastic forearm without the plastic barrel band. They slide off, and it's a bottle cap gun. As you can see, the steel is in good shape. It's got some rust and rust bubbling, but not a whole bunch. We'll flip it over and take a look on the back side. And now this one is equipped with the two holes. These two holes were installed on a lot of Daisy products in the 70s to mount their 303 model scope, which is yet another Daisy product that looks like a telescope but doesn't have any glass. So that's kind of interesting. And they did sell quite a few of them. And whenever you run into a Daisy that has these 2 holes on the side, that's what that's about. That was to mount a scope, should you decide to do so. 12-inch long buttstock, same as the other Model 111, but a good solid piece. Well, that's our 2-gun review, our 8-gun review, which is now just 1 gun on screen. Done in 2 parts because I hit the wrong button at some point in time. This is Shane Bruce with Resto Mod Daisy, signing off.